My name is Jenna Sampson, and I am Lowen's mom. At my 20-week ultrasound, we were told that Lowen would be born with a duplicate collecting system on her right kidney. And in January of 2021, 9 days after Lowen was born, she got her first kidney infection. And this was really the beginning of a very hard first year of Lowen's life. My pregnancy with Lowen was really like my previous pregnancy. Basically right up until 20 weeks, we had done the genetic testing and Lowen's marker for Down syndrome had come back. The number is higher than what would be the norm. So we were sent to the IWK to do a second round of genetic testing just with the more advanced technology there. And when they were doing Lowen's scan, they noticed that she had a bulge in her bladder. So something that was protruding into the inside of her bladder. So they ended up discovering that it looked like the baby, or Lowen at the time, had a duplicate kidney or a duplicate collecting system on her right side. I mean, her anatomy would have been so small at that point it was very hard to see, but they knew that there was something just abnormal to her anatomy. And so my pregnancy, we had numerous visits every couple of weeks back to the IWK just to continue to check on her. It ended up that my due date was January 10th, but because my first child had come so early, he was born 3 weeks early, they recommended that Dawn and I move to Halifax in preparation for Lowen to be born. So there were still quite a few different tests that I had to do leading up to my due date. And so we moved to Halifax on December 17th, just before Christmas, which was challenging in itself because we had to leave our toddler home. But he was here with my mom, he stayed with my mom through Christmas, and obviously they had made it very special for him. But Donald and I went to Halifax on December 17th, and Lowen was born on December 31st, and then we made it back to Sydney just in early January. So Lowen was born on a Thursday morning at 10 after 12 a.m. Actually just the same timeline as her brother, conveniently. We did an ultrasound. Nothing had looked any different than previously, so we were cleared to go home. So we had left on Friday and arrived home late Friday night, so on January 1st. I had no reason to have any concerns. So it was Saturday, January 8th, and I was home. She sort of started whimpering, like she would be fully asleep, like not awake, not alert, like she was just asleep as newborns do. But she was making this whimpering sound. But then at lunchtime, I had just put her in her Mama-Roo chair, which is like a little mobile chair. It has a clip. And all of a sudden she screeched, like this high-pitched screaming noise, like she was in pain. And so I had put her in a room on her change table, and my sister was with her, and I was on the phone with 811. And so the nurse, because she wasn't here, she just said to me, like, ma'am, you need to hang up the phone and call 911. And so I've never experienced anything like that moment. Kind of just put me in like a frenzy. So I hang up, my sister is with the baby, I call 911, and he said, ma'am, the ambulance is on the way. So we arrived in Emerge. And once we got there, Lowen was still screeching, and so they did a urine analysis, and it came back with a kidney infection. And so immediately Lowen was admitted to peds in Sydney at the Cape Breton Regional, and I went with her. We arrived to the pediatric unit at 2 a.m. I will remember this day for my entire life. I was so scared, because she was so little when they're telling you, okay, she's sick. And I'm like, how the heck did she get an infection? She's 9 days old. So at that moment, I knew there was something wrong with her. So we spent the next 4 days at the Cape Breton Regional while they waited for the urine culture, but they couldn't treat her anymore. So we were sent to the IWK by ambulance. It was the middle of the night when we arrived, and Lowen spent 2 weeks there. So that became the biggest challenge, is getting Lowen's infection under control. And they said to us, we're gonna do a scope. So what ended up happening with that scope is that she was too infected at the time to be able to actually get the scope far enough. They didn't want to risk hurting her further, and they kind of came back up and told us Lowen would get a nephrostomy tube. So essentially they insert a tube directly into the kidney and it drains the infection. We were able to come home while Lowen had her nephrostomy tube. It was like 7 to 10 days. It wasn't until end of February that we finally got all the infections under under control. So April 1, just the day after she turned 3 months, Lowen had her nephrectomy, where they removed both of the kidneys, and her recovery went so well, like she was a completely different baby. Just a year ago, she got her uterocills removed, and she hasn't had any infections since. All of those trips to the IWK, we received support from the foundation. And so it doesn't even matter the amount, whether it was a lot of money or little money, it's one less thing you need to worry about. And especially now, 3 Day Day being about the pediatrics fund and the TLC fund, it's truly not until you're in it yourself that you really understand how important these funds are.